Hello students, this is Raheema and welcome to my new video where we are going to discuss control and coordination. So control and coordination is a very important process that helps in controlling the activities which are going inside our body, integrate them and helps us to interpret also what is going on not only inside but also outside in the external environment. We receive thousands, not thousands, millions of stimuli every day, externally and internally. And to respond to that stimuli, a nervous system has made it makes so many changes, and it coordinates that activity with the endocrine system. How it does that, we are going to learn in the later videos, but here we are going to focus more on the plants. Plants do not have a nervous system, okay? But how they are controlling and coordinating the activities is actually the question which we will try to answer here. So let's move on. And for this, I'm going to share the video with, share the screen with you. The topics that we are going to cover include introduction to stimuli and response to stimuli, plants' growth and movement, plant hormones, and movement of curvature in plants, the tropic movements and its types. Okay, so let's start. So, the changes, stimuli are the changes in the environment to which the organism respond. And every living organism respond when an external stimulus acts on it. When various organs work together in a systemic manner to produce a response to the stimulus, it is known as coordination. Now, plants do not move from their place, but they can change their growth pattern. Okay. And this growth pattern is in response to a stimulus which is known as tropism. So, when we talk about tropic movements or when we talk about tropism, remember that it is the movement, the growth movement shown by plants with respect to a particular stimulus. The stimulus can be light, gravity, chemicals, water, etc. Okay. Unlike animals, the response of a plant is regulated by the interaction of two or more plant hormones. It takes considerably longer time to observe the stimulus. Like I was saying, they do not have a nervous system. So how they are coordinating the activities? They are coordinating these activities with the help of plant hormones. The plant hormones we are going to discuss in the next video. Okay, but the mention of the plant hormones is very important here because you should know that what is the stimulus basically to which the plants are responding. It is the plant hormones. Okay, plant use electrical chemical means to convey the information, but they have no tissues. Plants change their shapes by changing the amount of water in the cell. That means by changing the turgor pressure. Okay, it is the pressure generated inside the cells when cells absorb water, resulting in shrinking and swelling. One such example of a plant that responds to a stimulus is Mimosa pudica. This response is growth independent. Okay. Yes. So let's move on to the tropism, which is plant growth and movement. The responsive growth movements toward or away from an external stimulus is called tropisms. And if the plant movement is towards the stimulus, it is a positive tropism, like positive phototropism, positive geotropism. And if it is away from the stimulus, then it is the negative tropism, like negative geotropism, negative phototropism, etc. Okay. Plant move in response to a stimulus, and plant growth can be divided into either tropic movements or nastic movements. Both of these movements are in response to a stimulus. The stimulus is absolutely important, but tropic movements are growth movements in response to a stimulus, and nastic movements are movements but not growth movements. Okay, so let's move on, where we are going to discuss the types of the tropic movements. So again, tropic movement is the biological phenomenon that indicates movement of an organism such as plants towards an environmental stimulus. And these are the types of tropic movements. Phototropism is in response to light, geotropism is in response to gravity, chemotropism is in response to a particular chemical substance, hydrotropism is in response to water, thigmotropism is in response to mechanical stimulation, and thermotropism is in response to a wound, lesion, changes in which brings about changes in temperature. Okay, mechanical stimulation, example, touch. Thigmotropism is basically in response to touch. Okay, and these movements are growth dependent. Okay, so let's start with the first type of movement, that is phototropism. Okay, here you can see the plant is growing straight towards the light, uh, and here you can read auxin here, okay, which is a type of plant growth regulator which helps in the growth of a plant in response to light. Okay, so auxin is a plant hormone. Okay, roots are growing away from the light, that means they show negative phototropism. Shoots and I mean the stems and the branches, they grow towards the light, so they show positive phototropism. Okay, here you can see another experiment where there is a barrier which is shielding the plant from the sun. Okay, plant is still bending toward the light wherever the light is coming from. So this shows positive phototropism by the stem. Okay, and the auxin, wherever the plant is growing towards the light, the auxin, it moves there, okay, and brings about the growth. So you can see, you can say that auxin brings about the growth in response to light in the shoot system. Okay, so let's move on to the next uh, concept of phototropism, where it is shown here that auxin is made here. So where auxin is made, this region basically is known as coleoptile, which is the tip of the stem. Okay, when light strikes here, the auxin moves down the stem, okay, and it stimulates the growth of the stem. If one side of the shoot is in the light, auxin diffuses away from the light and then it will bring about the growth of that part. Auxin will make the cells grow faster. Okay, like the side of the shoot which is in the shade has more auxin, so that it will bend from that side. So that part grows faster, causing the shoot to bend towards the light. So wherever the bending has to take place, the amount of auxin will be more in that part. Okay. There are some experiments that were performed by Darwin and Boyson and Jensen. Darwin and Darwin actually saw the bending of the shoot tip towards the light. Okay, and this part, which is known as coleoptile, and they also observed that if the tip is removed, then the stem is straight. There is no bending. Also, if it is covered by an opaque cap, then also it doesn't show any bending. But if it is covered by transparent cap, then it shows bending. Okay, if the tip is not covered and the base is covered, then also bending is shown. Okay, this shows that the substance which is responsible for the bending, for the growth movement towards the light in response to the light, is present in the tip of the shoot, that is the coleoptile. And the substance that is synthesized in the coleoptile is auxin. Auxin is bringing about the growth in response to light. This was actually discovered by Darwin. Then Boyson and Jensen, they modified the experiment a little bit. They separated the tip of the plant, tip of the shoot, by a gelatin block. Okay, when they separated it with the gelatin block, they still observed the bending. Okay, but when they separated it with a mica block, then they didn't observe any bending. So this means that the substance which is responsible for bending, it can diffuse from the tip of the shoot uh, downwards through this gelatin block. Okay, but because mica gelatin block is, you can say, it is semi permeable membrane. Okay, it makes a membrane like a living membrane. Okay, but mica is completely non living, so there is no bending, because the substance that is synthesized in the coleoptile, it is unable to move downwards, it is unable to diffuse downward through the mica. Okay, this was observed by Boyson and Jensen. So we need to remember that auxin is not only being synthesized in the coleoptile, but it is also capable of diffusing to the part where the bending is taking place. Okay, so this is the correct explanation, a specific explanation of phototropism that takes place in plants. Now let's move on to the next tropic movement, that is geotropism. Geotropism can be negative, that is shown by the shoots. They are moving away from the ground. Okay, gravity. This is actually growth towards gravity, or grow towards earth. So roots show positive geotropism because they grow towards gravity, and shoots show negative geotropism. They grow away from the gravity. Okay. So next movement is hydrotropism, that is growth towards water. Okay, so there there is a setup here, you can see, where the a rooted plant, okay, is kept close to a water source, and you can see that the roots, they are growing towards the water source. Okay, this experiment actually proves hydrotropism, that is shown by the roots. Okay, roots show hydrotropism. Okay, next type of growth movement is thermotropism. Okay, TH, which is growth in response to growth movement in response to temperature. And this is shown by a plant known as rhododendron. You can see the changes in the shape of the leaf in cold temperature and hot temperature. Hot temperature, they are all alive, okay, and they bloom. But in the cold temperature, they look wilted, and they are growing downwards. Okay, the actual picture is like this. So this is how the leaves will look in cold temperature. Okay, and this is how they will grow when the temperature is high. Okay, and the example is dendron. So this is all in response to the temperature. Next type of movement is thigmotropism. Okay, this is the growth movement in response to touch. Okay, so this is a tendril, which is a modified leaf. Okay, and when these tendrils, they come in contact with any kind of supportive structure. Okay, here a rope is shown. So when they come in contact with this supportive structure, they start growing over it. Okay, this growth movement is in response to the touch. Okay, the stimulus is the touch of tendril with the supportive structure. Okay, so this is the perfect example of thigmotropism, which is found in plants. Yes. So next is chemotropism. Okay, chemotropism is the growth movement in response to chemical substances. Chemical substances. So an example of pollen germination is given here. Pollen tube formation or pollen grain germination. Okay, when pollination takes place, the pollen starts germinating on the stigma. Okay, this is in response to the chemical substances, which is a sugar. Okay, a sugary substance that is produced by the ovary. When this chemical is uh, detected by the pollen tube, by the pollen grain, the pollen tube starts germinating towards the ovule. Inside the ovule, the egg is there, and the male nucleus, it moves down through the pollen tube towards the egg where the fertilization will take place. Pollen tube formation is an example. Root growth is another example where the roots are growing towards the mineral ions which are present in the soil uh, mixed with water. Okay, this is the example of chemotropism. So with this, let's move on to the questions. And in the first question, it is asked, what is the need of control and coordination in an organism? So if control and coordination is not there in the organism, uh, specific responses, you can write to give specific responses to external and internal stimuli. Second thing is to uh, interpret the sensory stimuli by the brain and spinal cord. You can obviously you can write more points. So this is all due to the higher organization that is achieved by our nervous system. Okay, the next is, what are tropic movements? Tropic movements are growth movements shown by plants in response to specific stimuli like light, gravity, water, chemicals, etc. Okay. Example, phototropism is in response to light. Okay. Uh, Geotropism is in response to gravity, etc. Okay, name any two types of tropism. So I'm going to give an example of thigmotropism, which is in response to touch, and chemotropism, okay, which is in response to chemicals. Okay. So next question is, which plant growth regulator is involved in phototropic movement? Okay. In the phototropic movement, I told you the plant growth regulator involved is auxin. Okay. Where it induces the growth of the coleoptile. This is structure on shoot tips. Okay. Then next question. Okay, you have to identify the type of movements in the pictures below. So I'll give you a few seconds to observe the pictures. Then we are going to answer them. So what do you think the first picture shows? If you're thinking about positive geotropism, then you are probably right. So it is showing positive geotropism. The second picture shows these pollen grains which are attached to the stigma. Okay, so this is showing chemotropism. Okay, next is to differentiate between thigmotropism and thermotropism. So I'm going to make two columns. So as we discussed, thigmotropism is the growth movement shown by plants towards touch stimulus, and this is the growth movement shown by plants to changes in temperature. Next, you can give example also, like it is shown in tendrils. Okay, and it is shown in rhododendron, where the cold temperature, the leaves were growing downwards. They drooped down, and then they were growing downwards. But when the temperature was high, they bloomed, and they were growing straight. Okay. Here we have to design an experiment to demonstrate hydrotropism. Okay. So if you want to design an experiment, uh, this is the perfect one, where you are taking support, okay, which is attached, you are attaching a tin box to that support, and you have put dry sawdust on the, you are keeping this tin box in a tilted position. Okay, and on the underside of it there is wet sawdust, and on the upper side there is dry sawdust, and from top to bottom you have put seeds in it. Okay, but if you look at the growth of the growth movement of the roots, okay, it is moving towards the wet sawdust. Okay, it is curved. The roots are curved when they are growing, and this is due to the positive hydrotropism that is shown by the roots of the seeds. So this is the radicle, basically, not roots exactly, but the radical part of the seed. So radical is the future root. Okay, so when the radical is coming out, it is growing towards the wet sawdust and going away from the dry sawdust, okay, which shows the positive hydrotropism. Okay, uh, now we have to explain how phototropism occurs in plants. So phototropism occurs in plants in response to light, okay. Auxin is synthesized in the shoot tips, coleoptile, in the coleoptile from where they diffuse, from where it diffuses downwards, and brings about bending of the shoot towards light. Okay, so with this, I'm going to end the video. If you have any questions, you can post them on the forum. I would be very happy to answer them. And stay tuned for my next video on the same topic. Thank you.